The Marching Roundtable is proud to be an official media partner of Drum Corps International.
Thanks for coming to the Marching Roundtable YouTube channel, sharing great information to help you succeed in all the marching arts. While you're here, we hope you'll subscribe. Hi, this is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts and the host of the Marching Roundtable podcast. On this series, we talk with a private lesson teacher and performer for each instrument to tell you what you need to know to be more effective in working with those students. We hope you enjoy the series.
I tell my students as we go lower and lower to aim the jaw at like a 45 going down. So if you imagine here I'll get it in the background. So here are our teeth. We typically create distance by going up and down. Pythagoras, that good old guy, said that if I do this, the distance between these 2 points still increases. So if you're going down this way, you still get the distance between the teeth and the lips are able to flap, but they're able to maintain contact with each other. If you pull the mouthpiece away, it shouldn't be the same pitch. It should drop. It should get lower. And the lower you get, the more air should be in there. If we try to balance tone, pitch, and air, as you get lower, the air goes up. And I find when band directors try to teach their kids to buzz their mouthpiece and get the same sort of vibrant sound that trumpet players are able to get, it doesn't translate to the bigger equipment. And I have my students actually practice tonguing right there. Again, it's an external motion and habit that we can form and then apply it to the tuba. Because, you want me to say the and this and that? It's like, no, put your tongue there. And I think a lot of students that come into tuba world, we try to actually say this syllable. And that creates its own other set of problems, as opposed to being a place that we tongue that blocks the air.
This podcast is sponsored by FJM, Fred J. Miller Incorporated, found at fjminc.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Marching Roundtable podcast. This is Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. We're talking about tuba today. I'm here with Tom Lukowicz. Tom, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on another podcast with me. We are imagining that there is a director standing on the podium. There are tubas sitting in front of them. What should they know? This is our whole concept, everybody. Tom, tell everybody who you are.
My name's Tom Lukowicz. I'm the Associate Professor of Low Brass at the University of North Alabama. I'm also the principal tuba of the Canton Symphony Orchestra and the Chamber Orchestra of New York.
Awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Absolutely.
I decided to do one of these about each instrument. So let's talk about tuba. What's the first thing that comes to your mind that you wish every director really understood?
Stop saying drop your jaw. Stop saying drop your jaw. As a tuba player, and any brass instrument, our lips need to do this, right? And they need to flap. And the first thing that is like the default thing that every band director goes to is just drop your jaw, more air. And what I have my students here do, and even my high school students, I have them say the word mom. And you say mom slowly, the jaw comes down, the bottom lip goes with it, and you only should go down as far as the transition from the M to the O. Otherwise, your lips are apart, and any air you blow goes right through the middle. As a result, the kids drop their jaw like they're being told to do, and then they have to stretch their lips back up. And that's what gives all the tuba players that they're dropping their jaw, but it gives them that oinky sound because their lips are now squished and like muscled in, as opposed to being able to relax and flap freely. So no more dropping of the jaw.
All right, I like that. So, and the thing I like about it is that you have given us another way to describe it that's better. So that's very, very helpful. Okay, that's
I'm going to do a part B to that one though too. So I tell my students as we go lower and lower to aim the jaw at like a 45 going down. So if you imagine here I'll get it in the background. So here are our teeth. We typically create distance by going up and down. Pythagoras, that good old guy, said that if I do this, the distance between these 2 points still increases. So if you're going down this way, you still get the distance between the teeth and the lips are able to flap, but they're able to maintain contact with each other. So it helps. I just said what not to do. So I think doing a what should you do might be able to help offset that a little bit. And I just tell my students, look at a clock, like down at 7:30. If you're going 6 to 7:30, you're going more down. If you're going 9 o'clock, you're going straight out. So 7:30 seems to be a good balance to keep all this working together.
That's awesome. Great advice. And if some of this didn't make sense to you, if you're listening, you need to be watching the video version because Tom's doing a great job of demonstrating all this on the video, which is great. Okay, so what other things would you want a band director to know about the tuba?
When they start off, I would really try to have them use external tools to learn how much air actually is involved. Okay, so one of my teachers, Tommy Johnson, way back in the day, wrote a method book. I think it's still out of print, but he starts off by having props with a piece of paper and just has, this is like page 1 before you even get to a fingering chart of just blowing and actually holding the paper out, not just blowing like that, but actually holding it steady so that the tuba player learns how to manage an airflow at a directed point that's away from. And then we go into adding articulations on the airstream and trying to not have it, So
you're blowing air against the piece of music, and the paper is staying away because you're keeping a constant airstream, and then you start adding some articulation to that.
Yeah, and what I do with my students, I am not a drawer or an artist, but we usually draw a little target, just a little bullseye, so that they're actually aiming for a spot, not generally pushing this way, but actually as if you were buzzing. And that usually goes, I'm a little lightheaded right now. For the younger students or for the students that may be involved in, maybe they're baritone players switching over to tuba for something. It's an off the horn habit that you can transfer onto the horn that all of a sudden it makes you realize how much air you actually need.
So obviously air is really important for tuba, right? It requires so much. So is this something different from, you would say, for other low brass instruments?
I teach all the low brass here, and I tell my students that if you're a euphonium player and you can breathe like a tuba player, you can take a lazy breath and still fill up and have a supply of air. Same thing with the trombones. I have a few saxophone players, and I've had clarinet players, as well as some trumpet players come over and take secondary lessons. And their mind is blown just by this simple idea of, here's how much you actually need to do this.
So it's helpful for them to learn how much is required for the tuba, and then that's can be applied to any other instrument.
Yeah, if you can bench 225, you shouldn't have a problem picking up, a 50-pound chair and moving it across the room. So I'm one of the people that teaches strength and muscles rather than this relaxed idea that a lot of people tend to get into. The eyebrow went up on that one. I tend to have my students live, and I think this is a good thing for everyone. We live in this world of it's either tension or it's relaxed. But there are muscles involved in actions. And if we can learn what muscles to use, I'm taking a relaxed breath with no tension, but I am using the muscles that are required for that action. The same way that, if I lift up my coffee cup, there's muscles involved. The coffee cup's not shaking, but there's a certain amount of structure that needs to happen. And I find that through some of these other simple exercises I have prepared here, it makes you go, wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it. But it's using your body's natural habits and natural reflexes to make it easier moving that much air.
I love that you're talking about this concept of all the different ways that strength and muscles can happen, right? Because I
Yeah.
think you're right. I don't think people think about that. For me, for sure, when I started studying martial arts about 10, 12 years ago, like you're using your muscles to go through these forms, and a lot of it is very slow moving, controlled motions.
Mhm.
But it's so healthy that you're going through all these different planes and moving your body muscles, but you're having to definitely control your muscles without them being tense, say. So
Right.
that's my way of adding to that conversation, but I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we in the studio we define, I'm always using these Austin fingers like air quotes, tension as any muscle that's being used that's not involved in what I'm trying to do. So it allows the muscles to be used, the freedom to be used, but anything extraneous after that, get rid of that. And then we try to figure out a way to get it, like, sort of siphon that out a little bit.
All right. So the concept of the air with the bullseye on the piece of paper, I love that as a great starting point for getting that concept. What else would you do?
I would have your tuba players stop buzzing. Here's what. Got my mouthpiece. This camera's going to follow me all around. It's going to get, the camera's getting a workout today. So there's lots of different ways when you buzz your mouthpiece that you can build a habit that's not necessarily correct on the horn. Without getting into what I tell my students too deeply, we try to reverse engineer everything. So I have this sound, and how do I back that up? As opposed to, if I do this, this, and this, something will come out of the bell. But is the ladder of exercises leaning against the correct tree? And sometimes that gets misconstrued a little bit. Okay. So the first thing we do in the studio, these are it's just a normal straw, just a normal bendy straw. I cut the bendy part off, and we have the students with the piece of paper get used to blowing against that. And then you pull the straw out. So the structure here is set up how our body would naturally want to blow bubbles through a tube. Do the same thing. And then you get to graduate to the big straw. It's just a smoothie straw from I think I got it from one of the big box retailers. It's like 50 of them for $1. And if I'm just blowing the air, directed air column at the target, and that's going to fit in there. And what this does for younger players, if I find my camera, it actually is going to go inside the shank, and it provides a smaller tube that's more resistance. So the children and the members and the students are able to blow air and feel some traction that's there. So if I'm blowing, I'm not creating a buzz in my lips. I'm blowing the traction that's created by inserting that straw. And the resistance is what gives us the ability to get the buzz. And then I tell them to, we talk a lot about a traffic cone. And with tuba players, we have this tendency to just sort of blow air. But if you talk about a traffic cone, it's smaller up top and it's wider down the bottom. So when we're in the middle and upper register, we're blowing smaller air to bigger and wider air. So we have our students, and I've done this with seventh graders, and like a light bulb just goes off. So if I blow the bottom of the traffic cone, lower note, blow in the middle of the traffic cone, and eventually to the higher part.
So your concept, if I understand you, is you're concentrating on pushing the air, not on buzzing your lips?
Correct. The buzz happens because of the back pressure.
Interesting.
And I don't know, I got my good old tuba right here. But if I'm buzzing, I hope these mics pick it up. Good, solid, centered sound. If I put that into the horn, though, it's a little clampy. But if I relax the way I was just blowing the air, it's a different sound versus I don't know if that's coming across over the mic as being tighter or more oinky.
Well, it's not super clear from our point of view, but I think your point is still well made.
One of the other things that I think band directors need to be aware of is the quality of buzz that we have the students try to get on the mouthpiece. I see a lot of band directors saying you need a really centered sound on the horn, you need a really centered sound on the mouthpiece. So if I find a reference pitch, this is a C tuba, so I'm just going to use a G. Band directors, I would say use B flat or an F. It's fine. And then try to get a really great centered sound on this. But then if I plug that centered buzz back into the horn, to my ears that sounds a little squishy. It's a little clamped. If I play how I want to normally play, and then I pull the mouthpiece out, that's a way different buzzy sound than with an airier buzz. The pitch is barely, it's maybe 25% pitch and a lot of air. Again, a centered buzz. To my ears, that sounds a little clamped. So that'd be the next thing I would check if I was a band director, is to make sure that the buzz is the proper type of buzz for in the instrument. And again, if to go back to when we talked about buzzing earlier, that's one of the main reasons that I invoke with my students. I love using that buzzing tube. I think invoke might be the wrong word, but I think using that buzzing tube matches the resistance. So the blow that I get on the buzzing tube is the same. Is very, very airy. Hope that helps.
And so this is a different sort of concept that you think we need to deal with our tuba players to help keep them from having that like pinch small sound.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think I always take the approach of the students are going to do what you tell them to do 95% of the time. Okay. Minus a kid here or there, they're going to do their best. So if we assume positive intentions from them, and I'm getting this result, but it's not what I want, I need to look at what directions I gave them. And a lot of these concepts are, James Stamp was a trumpet teacher. Great book. And one of my teachers wrote a supplemental book to that. It's called The Brass Wind Methods of James Stamp. And the Stamp book itself is all music. The book that Roy Popa wrote is text that should sort of be inserted into the Stamp technique. And one of the things that's in there when I was studying with Roy is if you pull the mouthpiece away, it shouldn't be the same pitch. It should drop. It should get lower. And the lower you get, the more air should be in there. If we try to balance tone, pitch, and air, as you get lower, the air goes up. And I find when band directors try to teach their kids to buzz their mouthpiece and get the same sort of vibrant sound that trumpet players are able to get, it doesn't translate to the bigger equipment. So what I recommend, and I think this camera's getting me, is sort of, I think, a must for tuba players. This is a piece of 5/8 inch PVC, maybe 18 inches long. And you put your mouthpiece in, and it mimics the back pressure of the instrument. So you can still do your buzzing exercises. You can still get some scalar work done here without having to overly grip down on everything. So you can blow freely on the tube and then transfer that same skill set, as opposed to trying to blow differently depending on what you're doing.
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. You're suggesting that if you're doing buzzing exercises with your brass, say, if you add that tube for the tubas, then they're not learning bad habits of too much tension to try to get that same buzz. The tube allows them to play in a more tuba-like way?
Yes, because it's a similar feel to the instrument. And again, it goes back to that the Bob Lazar method of reverse engineering everything. And if you're on the marching band field with if you got the sousaphones, you can take out the bits in the neck and use that. You can take out the lead pipe on a lot of the marching horns nowadays that are over the shoulder style to do the exact same thing. And it really just helps the students, A, control their air, because now they can blow against something a little bit. And it's way easier on here. So, I mean, 10 feet of this at your big box hardware store is maybe $15. I usually buy 20 feet at a time at the beginning of every semester. Kids lose it. Just cut it up, give it to them. Since I've switched to doing this for the studio and other places I've taught at, the tuba sound is just opened up and it becomes a bottom, not a bad subwoofer speaker.
Yeah. And I love this concept, Tom. Like, I think this is really great advice, because I think everybody thinks you grab your mouthpiece and you play. But if it's not appropriate for a tuba, if they need that extra support to create the buzz in a more appropriate way, like that's just like very, very simple thing that could make a huge difference.
Yeah. It's almost counterintuitive. Why am I blowing into a smaller pipe? But it gives me more control. And if we go back to, our day one of this, even with the younger kids, just have them buzz on that. It's fine. It's, again, you still can control pitch. You still can focus on an even airflow. But anything to avoid the clamping down on the lips, to get a good buzzy buzz sound.
Yeah, and I can totally see how a band director who didn't understand this, which would have been me when I was teaching, right? Like, I would have thought, okay, just buzz your mouthpiece like everybody else, and then, and now it's getting tight, so then I'm going to throw in the drop your jaw thing, and I'm not creating this perfect storm of problems for that tuba player when all they need is that extra piece of tubing to help them do it right. All right, this is awesome. All right, what else do you want a band director to know?
Tonguing. I'm sure a lot of people out there follow the Arbin's book and follow you say to, or you say ta, or, breathe da, all that sort of stuff. But we have to go back and remember that Arbin was French. And the Arbin book says say tu, T-U. In France, T-U is a dental T. The tongue is on the teeth. Not if you, like I have my kids say tater tot, because it has a bunch of T's in it. And if here's the top, there you go. If there's the top teeth and like where the palate is, when you say tater tot, your tongue's sitting up here. But the buzz is down here. So we're tonguing, and the oral cavity, I feel like I'm on like voguing right now or something like that. It does this. And the sound then blossoms. So you then yell at your students to say, come on, guys, just got to say ta, like say ta. And you do all these verbalizations when the reality is they're tonguing in the wrong spot and their oral cavity is doing that, which causes the sound to do that. So what we do in the studio is a French two is similar to where we would say Thursday. So if you just put your tongue where you would say Thursday, it's on the teeth, it's on the back bottom of the top teeth. Does two things. As a tuba player, my tongue doesn't travel as far. It also gets the articulation point close to the buzz. The closer those two things are, the clearer the front of the note. If I say ta or da, I'm on that part of my tongue on the roof of my mouth, far away from the buzz. So if I get the articulation point by saying Thursday, don't actually try to say the syllable or say Thursday in an articulation, but the motion of the tongue, all of a sudden, articulations clear up very, very quickly.
So this distinction you're making with the syllables is especially for tubas.
Well, I mean, Arbin, cornet player, trumpet player. It's a lost in translation aspect of brass playing that if you're fortunate enough to study with some people that are aware of the fact that Arbin was French and that he should say things in a French way, that you understand that the tongue is at the teeth, not up on.
So you're suggesting this for tonguing for everybody?
Brass players.
Okay. Brass players, but especially, I guess we're talking about tubas today, but really, you're suggesting this is a concept for all brass tonguing.
Yeah, and especially for tubas because, if you're a trumpet or French horn, your tongue is more elevated all the time. So you can get away with that, but our tongue lays at the bottom of our mouth a lot. So if we actually can decrease the distance, the tone colors is way better front of articulation through the end.
Yeah, I can get how that can make a big difference.
Yeah. So again, how to practice it. Go back to your normal bendy straw. And what we do is we just put it between our teeth like this. And I have my students actually practice tonguing right there. Again, it's an external motion and habit that we can form and then apply it to the tuba. Because, you want me to say the and this and that? It's like, no, put your tongue there. And I think a lot of students that come into tuba world, we try to actually say this syllable. And that creates its own other set of problems, as opposed to being a place that we tongue that blocks the air. So we just take this, we blow out some. If you're in the low register, because your teeth are farther apart, use the big straw. With younger students, any of this stuff that can build a habit away from the instrument, bring it to the instrument. It's this way you're not trying to put out a moving fire.
I like it. This is all really practical, helpful advice. All right. Is there anything else that you want to make sure a director would know about tuba?
I would say the last thing is volume. A lot of band directors talk about the pyramid of sound. We can get into that on a whole nother podcast. But if you're really trying to have a big bottom to the sound in your band, in your orchestra, with that support from the bottom, the bass voice, we need to talk about volume and just a good, powerful sound, for lack of a better word. And a lot of people in tuba land try to get more buzz when they play louder. Okay, I know a lot of other places in the brass family, they try to blow faster air, and that's going to, blow faster air, play louder. If you're a proponent of any of the stamp stuff, airspeed dictates pitch. So what's the first thing that happens when younger players start playing loud? They go sharp. The direction you told them was to blow more faster air, and then you yelled at them for the pitch going sharp. So as a result, what has to happen is then they say to the two players, you got to drop your jaw more. Dropping your jaw makes you go flat. So then you have one set of instructions saying, blow faster air, the pitch does that. Drop your jaw, the pitch does that. And then you have to balance those two things at the same rate so that the pitch stays even. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In tuba world, what we try to do is get more, because this thing is so big, you can fit your whole face in here. You can get more lip tissue to vibrate. So I'm trying to get more and more of my lip tissue to engage in the vibration. So if I'm playing really soft, I might have just that happening. And as I get louder, I'll have 2 lip tissues, then 3, then 4. And more the corners start to move out that way. And we talk about the corners as being, your lips are either the corners or they're vibrating. There's no third option. So if you need more lip to vibrate, that means you need to relax more from the center out. I think when younger players are told to relax, they just relax everything. And the support structure goes away. So, again, I'm 46 years old. I'm teaching tuba with straws on a daily basis, and the results are great. If I turn sideways, if I'm using this size straw and I'm blowing this out, this air column out, a certain amount of lips are going to vibrate. If I do this one, I'm going to get more vibration. But the speed of the air has to remain the same. So I tell my students, smaller air or a smaller air column width is softer, and a wider air column gets more lip to vibrate, which is then more volume. And we have some practice tracks that we use in here all the time. And the first time we do it, and you can do this, you can use Tonal Energy Tuner, you can use any of your Dr. Beats through a sound system to have a drone happen. And the minute they start opening up like this, they can hear the pitch start to change if they're blowing too hard. But if they're doing this properly, because at the end it's the same result, we're getting a wider air column, but I'm asking you to change one thing now, just blow the same speed wider, as opposed to blow faster, open up, keep them in balance. So I found it's an easier way to get your tuba players to understand how to play louder properly with less pitch deviation on the lower end of the ensemble spectrum, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, you're kind of blowing my mind because I think everybody just defaults, just use more air for volume. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And it's it seems especially important for the tuba because of how much lip and mouthpiece there is, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole other way of thinking about it.
These things weigh as much as a trumpet. I mean, and just the pipes, a professional tuba starts at, 3/4 of an inch about. So there's a lot of air in there that we have to learn how to manipulate properly. So I found that, again, just the easiest way, reverse engineer everything. And with that, an easy way for the students to remember this concept, if you teach it to them. I don't know if this is a crescendo or a decrescendo on your screen, but if we're looking at it as a decrescendo, here's the loud part at the start of the decrescendo, and there's the smaller part. That's all your air does. Your air starts here at the big end and goes to the small end. Other way, starts at the small end and goes to the big end. So there's a visual reminder in the music that I'm a tuba player. We can get a little loopy sometimes sitting back there, but there's visual direction there that as long as you remind them, oh yeah, okay, yeah, crescendo. What do? I blow a bigger air column. It's built-in reinforcement without the band director having to say instructions 19 times, which typically happens.
Yeah, right. Nice.
Especially to the tubas.
Yeah. Okay, so as we're closing, you're a tuba player. Mm-hmm. So tell me why you love the tuba and playing the tuba in an ensemble.
Oh, geez. Okay. In all honesty, I was a sax player, and I switched from alto sax to bari sax, and it was fun. But my friend was also playing bari sax, and I'm like, "You're way better than me. I don't like this." And the band director's like, "Hey, you want to switch to tuba?" I'm like, "Sure." So we were still sitting next to each other because that's how they had us set up. But I was doing this other thing. So, and I was the only tuba player in the band. And as that sort of happened, the early years when I was marching drum corps, there were maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 of us, on the field, 1 or 2 tuba players in my high school marching band. And I really enjoyed the idea that it's a single instrument. It's all the responsibilities on me and my work ethic and my ability to make decisions musically, my ability to listen. And if I can rely on myself, it's like a group project. You don't know what that person's going to do, so just being there, doing that. And then, I went to college for it, but the moment that really solidified like tuba playing for me, we did an arrangement. I was the tuba player in the brass ensemble at my undergrad. And there's just something cool about that, of being the only tuba player in a 13, 14 piece concert brass ensemble. And just the ability, there's freedom, there's musical freedom, and there's also the self-reliance that you have to show up on your A game all the time, which I know some high schools, you might have 10, 15 tubas. But for me, it was this is all on me. If it's bad, it's on me and I better fix it. If it's great, great. You're just doing your job. And you count a lot of rests. So you get to listen to your colleagues make great music. You get to be around the music, listening to all these glorious sounds that composers have without having to practice all the notes the violins do. I mean, it's true.
Well, and I mean, we all know band directors all know how important the tuba is in all multitudes of ways to an ensemble. And so I would think that would feel like you should well feel very important, because tubas are critical to, that low sound that grounds everything,
Yep.
I love it. This has been so much fun to talk about tuba today, Tom. Thank you for taking time to share your expertise in this way. Yeah, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you watch for all the releases in this series, and we hope you'll subscribe here at YouTube so that you don't miss a single release. Thank you for watching.
Marching Arts Education is the home of the Marching Roundtable podcast. We give you access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, podcasts, videos, interviews, and online coursework. With over 1,000 podcasts and hundreds of webinars and videos, there are hours of great professional development for you and your staff. Sign up for a membership to Marching Arts Education to get complete access to all webinars, videos, and podcasts, plus discounts on coursework. Many directors are using professional development funds through their school or boosters to make these resources available to their staff. Imagine what you could do with so many great new ideas from the top professionals in our activity. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for our newsletter to find out about the latest podcasts, webinars, and new content. Find all of this and sign up at marchingartseducation.com.